Hello and welcome to the Klassiki Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Goff. Klassiki is your window into the world of Eastern European film. Subscribers gain access to our library of classic and contemporary titles, as well as filmmaker interviews, video introductions, program notes, and much more. You can sign up for a free trial today at klassiki.online. If you enjoy the show, don't forget to subscribe in your podcast app of choice, and remember you can always get in touch with us at podcast@klassiki.online. Welcome back to Season 7 of the Klassiki Podcast. Hello to all our listeners, old and new. We've got 10 more episodes coming up for you on the past and present of Eastern European film, including some reporting from the summer festival circuit and some programming around a very exciting screening series coming up for our American friends. So subscribe now to make sure that you don't miss an episode. One of the highlights of last month's Cannes Festival was the long-awaited return of the German filmmaker Valeska Grisebach, who took home the jury prize for The Dreamed Adventure, which arrives 9 long years after her previous feature, Western. That film was about a group of German labourers in the Bulgarian mountains. The Dreamed Adventure sees the director remain in Bulgaria, filming this time with an all-Bulgarian cast. Grisebach has crafted another brilliant subversion of her genre influences with the story of Veska, a female archaeologist who gets tangled in the criminal underworld of her small border town. Grisebach's dedication to research, to local non-professional casting, and her collaborative and improvisational approach to scripting and performance give her and her cast the room to explore the traumatic recent history of Bulgaria and the murky future awaiting Europe as a whole. I was delighted to get the chance to sit down with Valeska Grisebach to discuss her attachment to Bulgaria, her takes on gender and genre, and the incredible real-life stories that informed her unique take on the gangster film. Valeska, welcome to the show and welcome back, if I may say so.
Oh, thank you so much. It's really great that you invited me for this conversation.
Oh no, the pleasure is really all mine in this case. So yeah, I mean, you're back with a new film. Like many people, I've been waiting patiently or impatiently for it's 9 years, I think, is it since Western?
I think it's 9 years. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we can maybe get into a little bit why it's taken so long. But yeah, so I mean, let's just jump into the film, The Dreamed Adventure. So, like your previous film, Western, this is set in Bulgaria.
Mm-hmm.
And with Western, there was this German link because it was about these German workers traveling to Bulgaria. But whereas this time we've gone full Bulgarian, the entire film is in Bulgarian cast. So I guess my first question is, why and how did you choose to stay in Bulgaria with Bulgaria and to kind of pursue this, I don't know, this location or these people even further?
Mm-hmm. When we were filming Western, I think it was quite clear for me right after filming there that I would love to return to Bulgaria because, of course, I had new relationships and friendships, which also created some, I don't know, some wishes to return. But I realized while Western how less I know about Europe and how limited when I talk about Europe, how limited this word is. And I mean, it sounds like a cliche in a way, but to realize it feels so different maybe when we are talking about Europe in Bulgaria than in Germany, and that Europe, of course, has so many different faces. And it really sounds like a cliche, but it touched me really very much. And so this was one step in my fantasy to return to Bulgaria. And then when I talked to people from my generation who were young at 1989, I realized how much we are connected with this experience of change in Europe, but at the same time, how much we are separated because of so different experiences in the years afterwards. So that I had the feeling, okay, the 90s in Bulgaria were something completely different than in Germany. And so, for example, I mean, there, of course, are many different perspectives, but there were some people who named this time like a time like in war, a time for men, not
Yeah.
for women. And this matched in a way with my interest for male genre. And sometimes you can't explain exactly why, but step by step, it was quite clear that I would love to do something there. And I was full with doubts. So I thought really, okay, am I allowed to do this? Who is telling a story where, of whom? About all these hierarchies of storytelling, who tells
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
story of whom. But all these doubts, when I was on the place with the people, they were really flying away. And I thought, okay, if I have, when we do this with this idea of collaboration, and filmmaking has for me to do so much with not knowing. So there are some things I know, but there are much more things I don't know. And I have all these blind spots, and I thought then maybe it's a nice try to make this film.
So, I mean, as I understand it, your filmmaking process is a lot based on, I guess you could call it research, or as you put it, there, kind of collaboration. So, spending a long time in these locations, which I presume is also really important in terms of casting, because as you're known for your non-professional actors that you cast. So, presumably that the amount of time, care, and time, and kind of social relationship that goes into the whole process maybe lessens that fear of overstepping the hierarchy of storytelling, as you put it, or do
Yeah, I
you
think
never
the
let go
latter.
of that fear?
Yeah, I think it's really beautiful how you say this. And of course, for me, these 9 years, they didn't feel so long
I'm
because
sure, yeah.
because I mean, I could sometimes research for decades, I have the feeling, but it was essentially even especially because I'm a German filmmaker, when I do something in Bulgaria, that I have to go and to go again there and to get in contact with people and really to learn something. And this took time, and we had this Corona time in between, and
Oh yeah, of
was
course.
also some kind of distance, but I had the feeling we were the only ones traveling to Bulgaria. So research is very important, this moment of getting in contact and to go out with some kind of maybe fictional idea, and then to confront this with maybe we can call it reality, or or to confront fiction ideas with reality. But I had never have a story or a plot in the beginning of a project. It's really more like questioning something or some fragments of a story, and then it's really essentially to take the reality like a sparrings partner, or like a buddy on your side to
Yeah,
make
yeah.
a film.
And we're in a different part of Bulgaria this
Mhm.
time. If I remember correctly, Western is set in the hills, I think in the west of
It's more in
Bulgaria.
the west and very close to
Yeah.
the Greek border.
And where this time we are on the other side, in
Yeah.
this town, Svilengrad, which is a border town near to the border with Turkey, the Kapitan Andreeva border.
Mhm.
That's what it's called? Yeah. And I mean, there's so much interesting things to say, I think, about that switch in location, but the border and the idea of the border looms very large. And this border in particular, I think maybe a lot of people don't appreciate just how significant this border is for Europe and for the concept of Europe and so on. So, I mean, what was it about the idea of the border as well as the literal kind of concrete location of it
I
that
think
drew
it
you
would,
towards it?
yeah. I think it would both. So the border interested me also like a genre sign, like
Yeah,
this
yeah.
sort of adventurous space we know from literature or films, with all these fantasies of smuggling and hiding. And but it was at the same time very interesting to me, like a very concrete, contemporary. Yeah, it's not a place. I mean, it's a long place, and a
Yeah.
huge place, and it's also an idea in our heads and in a politically sense. But so in the beginning, we were only traveling always close to the border, more to the east. And of course, I knew that we would reach the, how do you say, European border. But
Hmm.
this was for me also a blind spot when we arrived in Svilengrad and Kapitan Andreevo. This is a, how do you say, it's three countries together. It's Turkey, Greece, and Bulgaria.
Yeah.
And only there I realized that Kapitan Andreevo, Svilengrad, that this is the biggest border crossing point from Europe, the second biggest from the world after Mexico. and everything which is coming in to Europe from the Near East or Turkey is coming in there or going out there. So it's a really, for Europe, it's a very political and economic, how do you say, reasons, very important point. And this is a place with a contemporary history, but also with very many stories from the past. And then I met there these wonderful women, very impressive women, because I think when people are growing up close to the border, it makes something with them. So special experiences and desires, and so I think, and then meeting some of these women there, most of them, I don't know, business ladies or women who were growing up there. I returned to this city, and at some point it was quite clear that I would love to film there.
It's really interesting what you say about the border being this idea or something with a, I guess if we're talking in terms of film or literature, like a genre connotation, like it's a generic in that sense idea, but it's also literally real. And that's something I think is so interesting in both your films set in Bulgaria, is the way that they build these kind of genre narratives out of reality, out of these quite day-to-day details. And I guess that comes from, the amount of time you spend researching and the way you work with these locals and the way you write and direct and so on, which we can get into a little bit more. I mean, your previous film was obviously called Western, and it was a take, if you like, on the Western genre. This one, I was watching it thinking, okay, how I was trying to spot the Western tropes, if you like. But it is a Western, like you say. It has that kind of adventure narrative of the border, but it's also a gangster film. Like there's this other male genre, as you put it, there. I mean, where does the genre kind of enter in for you? Because you say you start with questions rather than a story. So at what point do you decide or realize that you're making a Western or that you're making a gangster film?
I think I couldn't name it so clear, but for me, genre is really very interesting, because I was growing up with all these male genre films in German television as a girl, and it's very interesting for me to encounter these genres from a different perspective. And somebody told me now about the Dreamed Adventure, oh, this is a contemporary European Western. And I thought, okay, yeah, maybe he's right, but I was not so clear thinking about Western like maybe with the film before. But of course, I think I did some experiences while making Western that I thought, because while Western, my wish was that the female characters are interacting more with the genre.
Yeah.
I didn't succeed. So I thought, okay, it's too much for me in this film. I couldn't handle it. And I thought, okay, maybe then another time, but I felt how powerful the genre is. And for me, it was also not only interesting, it moved me that me as a female director, for me, it's sometimes easier to bring man and movement in a story than a woman when I do something connected with genre. So it was quite clear that in the next film I would love to think about that or to work with that. And but at the same time, it was because, I mean, for me, it's interesting this idea or construction of relationship or society, like in this, how do you say, it's everything is a fight, or there's the good and the bad, and you are a winner or you are a loser. Always these ideas of separation, and to tell something about that without, in the end of a story, to have a duel, because while writing, it was really screaming for a duel, a duel, a duel, a duel, and I was really thinking, how can I handle that to tell something about these warlike ideas, and not always to serve this dramaturgy of the duel, the separation, to reflect the genre without always to serve the genre.
That's a really nice way of putting it. I mean, as I was watching it, I was thinking, with my kind of gangster crime film hat on, I'm thinking, okay, at some point there's going to be some kind of explosion of violence, right? There's going to be someone's going to get shot. There's going to be, and without not too many spoilers, there is the threat or maybe the promise of that kind of encounter. And I'm watching it thinking, oh, I really hope it doesn't happen. And because it's because we are watching if you like, not a gender swapped take on the gangster film, but a gangster film which is centered around the female experience, it does go in a different direction. I mean, it's interesting what you say, and this is something you've said in a lot of interviews that I've read, is this attraction and affection for the male genres, as you put it. And I've seen you describe it as you're having internalized the male gaze. And I wondered whether that was something that you understand as kind of problematic as a filmmaker. Is that something that you're attempting to correct when you make a film like this, or is it more a tool to
Maybe
use?
both. It's interesting because I remember when I was 30 years old and I saw a retrospective of films by Catherine Breillat, and I was really shocked. I was like that I thought, okay, now I'm 30 years old and I see something in cinema which is really has so much to do with my experience as a woman, and about sexuality, about many other things. And and also making my own films, I realized I value maybe more all the things of the lonely male hero who doesn't show his feelings, who he takes action, and maybe also in a personal way. I thought interesting that this attraction puts this character on a, how do you say, a little bit higher,
On a pedestal.
and on a pedestal. And I found it a little bit problematic, in a way, to this romanticization of this character. But I was really growing up with all these stories, and I think there are some experience I share with men or every gender. It's not only a female experience, but because gender, I think it's so important, because I told this also maybe many often in interviews, that genre tells us so much about the construction of society and gender. So we can understand even if genre is always changing, but the Western tells something about the construction of society and what is valuable, what is not valuable, and all these ideas. The founding of America, for example. How do we want to live together? What is the relationship between men and women? And always this separation of who's winning, who's losing, top and bottom, and to say it a little bit more straight, who's fucking and who's be fucked. This was really one starting point for me for the project.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that I think is sometimes gets lost when we talk about this idea of the gaze is that, not to get too kind of theoretical, but right, like the idea of the male gaze is about the structure of fantasy. And when you're describing there the figure of the lone male hero and the danger involved in romanticizing that kind of man of action, right? That's a question of fantasy. Yeah. And I think one thing that your films do really well is to play this kind of fantasy and society against one another and show how one informs the other, and not always to very positive ends.
I think that the fantasy, everything is allowed in fantasy,
right?
And not I think in the end everything is allowed. But I think for me personally, it was interesting to feel and understand how much I'm influenced by a male gaze, and how do I relate to this. So this was maybe also a thing in the beginning of the project, that I thought, when I see genre as an architecture or something, everybody knows genre very well. We are all specialists, but when we imagine genre like an architecture, how is it? I had this image in my mind: a woman outside this architecture. She is looking into it like a voyeur, and then she is stepping into it, and maybe a light is meeting her. It's nothing that you can see so directly in the film, but it was one image I had in my head starting the project, and this was maybe also the reason to start the film with the male protagonist, with a man, as a sign of where are we now, in which kind of film or genre.
Yeah. And then there's the kind of fake out where the protagonist switches to the figure of Veska halfway through. And I'd love to ask you more about Veska Radova, who plays her. I just wanted to one thing I wanted to highlight was in terms of all this conversation about gender and about who's fucking who, as you put it. This is a film that really zeroes in on this fact, which I think in Western Europe is often forgotten or misunderstood, that the kind of post-communist world, that kind of world of created by the fall of communism in the 90s that you refer to, it particularly in Eastern Europe was so structured around sexual exploitation and violence, and quite literally, sex trafficking. And I think maybe it's something that people are becoming more aware of now, not to invoke, the world of Jeffrey Epstein and so on. But I think people are starting maybe to understand the extent to which, even in our so-called civilized West, that this kind of system of sexual exploitation is underlying so many of our power structures. But I think that it's a film that really highlights it without ever becoming lurid or becoming a kind of exploitation film itself.
Yeah, I think for me it was while writing the film, I think it was for me it was really a challenge in this project while writing it. How can we tell about sexual violence without stigmatizing our female protagonists? And this is part of her experience and part of the story, but there are many different things next to each other, and that's not the whole. The whole story is suddenly concentrated only to this and to stigmatize her in a way. And one thing was, of course, to tell it as a collective experience, but also maybe to at some point she decides when it does come up and how she deals with it. But for me, in a psychological way of storytelling, it was very important for me not to take this road. And it's like even if some people use the word trauma, and I have a lot of respect to trauma, I was a little bit afraid of this word, because I had the feeling that everybody is only on this road to this word and these experiences, and there's no space for anything else.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, life, I met so many people with so many bad experiences in their life, and they are so powerful, and I don't know, there are so many different levels when I think about these biographies and people, that I thought we have really to be attentive in this sense. And and I think this was also a starting point when people made this analogy to the 90s with war. I thought it's interesting when we have these expression war in our minds, that different roles are waiting for men and women. So the time is owned by the men, and there are other roles waiting for the women. And for example, to get victims of sexual violence. And I mean, I really don't want to talk about Bulgaria like this. I mean, you could make so many different films about this time, I think, and it would be totally wrong only to concentrate on this. But when I talk to women who were young in 1989 and in the 90s, I again and again heard this story. So it was quite clear at some point this should be part of the story. And it was not only is really the wrong word, but it was not only how do you say, sex trafficking or prostitution, just really that, I don't know, women were taken from the street or from the nightclub and I don't know, taken for one night and then putting back on the streets. And at the same time, I really could understand that a lot of women went at the night to the nightclubs. I totally could understand when the nights are, when the night officially is owned by the man, that as a woman you also want to participate in this, I don't know, space of power, money, sexuality, to really to be part of that, and not only watch from far away and to yeah.
I mean, well, look, let's talk about the protagonist who you're referring to there,
Mhm.
Veska, played by Yana Redova, who is an archaeologist,
Mhm.
who has this shared history with some of these men in this area, and who kind of finds herself or decides to become more and more immersed in that male
Mhm.
side of the world. I mean, she's a character who really neatly kind of embodies those contradictions that you were literally just mentioning there. Um, and when you're talking now about the desire to avoid kind of stigmatizing, I think it's really striking. Veska is a character who has desires and flirtations and
Mhm.
agency and so on, but she says that her favorite fictional character is Conan the Barbarian,
Yeah.
which is quite a neat way of putting it. But she remains outside of any kind of zone of judgment. I mean, could you just tell us a bit about Yana, the woman who you cast in this role? Because from what I read, her own life story is kind of incredible
Yeah.
and speaks to a lot of these things as well. And how much did the character come out of her or out of the demands of the story? I mean, how did it work?
No, I think she was really open to play somebody who is really different from her, but at the same time, I think she's always joking. Oh, she's so soft and so tender. I'm totally different,
Yeah.
and and but I think she gave so much to this role, and I really adore her for how she decided really to, yeah, to play this role without I don't know, without, yeah, without borders in a way, really to she was very open, um, and it was clear from the beginning that the main character should be a woman who's maybe going to her 60s, not a young woman, but of course a woman with a lot of life experience. And Jana Radeva, she, I think, like many women from this generation, for example, from Bulgaria, they, yeah, not in a way survived. This maybe sounds too dramatic, but they really had very often different professions. And I don't know, even in Bulgaria, in the 90s, you had a real inflation, something I only know from the history books
Yeah.
100 years ago. So really that you can't buy anything in shops, and you have to improvise. And I think this modus or this way of improvisation is something which is very, in a very, how do you say, cool way, very present. And yeah, she was in this, when in this period of casting, we met her by chance. It's always by chance. And then, yeah, we understood she was a geologist, but only for a short while, because then in the 90s it was not so easy to finance these projects. Then she was a manager of really big casinos. And I think she met really a lot of different people, and from all milieus, and maybe sometimes a little bit shady, sometimes not so shady. And at some point she was a farmer, and then she
All right.
working with animals, and now she's working with how do you say, organic cosmetics. But she is
Right.
really a very free spirit, and this was really a, how do you say, a present that we met her. And of course we had a longer time to try something together, not only me, that she also can understand if she really would like to do that. But yeah, it's I'm really thankful that we met.
And you're also working again with Suleiman Latifov, who had a smaller role in Western.
Mhm.
But here we think maybe at the beginning of the film he's going to be the protagonist,
Yeah.
but he's certainly a leading figure in the film.
Yeah, he's I mean, to be frankly, he's my partner.
Ah,
You can
okay.
decide if you take this in the interview or not. No,
That's up to you.
no, but I think that was really starting something when we did the last film together. It was really very interesting the way how we work together. And of course, he has this iconic cinematographic expression, and he's really sometimes for me like an iconic cinema sign. But he was also a little bit an advisor for the script for the Dreamed Adventure. And for me, it was really, I always have this desire to continue to work with people more often together. And it was a little bit a pity that I couldn't take more people from Western to the Dreamed Adventure for different reasons. But this is my dream to, in a way, because we have this ensemble of people we casted somewhere in the films, somewhere not in the films, but again, to make something together, that we have everybody is living their lives, but at some point we meet to make a film together. And Suleiman Latifov, I think he also brings so many different experiences. He's part of a minority in Bulgaria, and I think this was sometimes not so easy in socialism. And even also he in the 90s, he had to make some decisions where what how he would like to live. And at some point, he was for many years he was on, how do you say, on markets working.
Yeah.
Then he had different shops, and then for years now he has this stone place where he's working with stones. So I think he also had to improvise, and but he's very because he always lived in the mountains. I think he's really a character from the mountains, and this was also very something very dear to me to bring this into the film as a contrast maybe to all these business and success ideas to be a millionaire.
I guess, yeah, maybe if over time you would gradually have you'd have people in every town in Bulgaria. You could just
That's
go from one to the other, making films. I mean, presumably it's also helpful to have a collaborator who's familiar with your way of working, which is very particular. I mean, my understanding. I don't know if your process changed between the two films, but my understanding, is that your scripts look more like kind of blocks of prose, and you kind of deliver the scenes to the actors verbally rather than giving them the written script, and then the scene itself kind of comes out of the idea that you presented them with, and then also their improvisation. Was that still how you were working with this film?
I think it's so the method in a way is it's very similar, but I think I have more experience from one project to the other. And I think one thing until now stays always the same, that there is a script which doesn't look like a script, but it's also with dialogues and sometimes very precise. But I don't give it to the actors, but it's not that they're secrets. I really tell them everything. But for me, it's more, I don't know, I like it more at some point myself to put the script away and to tell it again and again and again. And at some point, the story is in the atmosphere. And sometimes for example, in this film are many group scenes when people are sitting around the table, because I love this moment when people tell stories.
I was
Also,
going to ask about this. There's
yeah,
so many scenes of people
yeah,
eating and drinking, and it's a really
yeah,
great way of dripping in these kind of details of these histories or plots or
yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, this was very important, not sometimes to give some information into the narration without action, more like a collective memory, and I really love this intimacy of sharing stories as to come close or to laugh about something. And sometimes before these scenes we talked for hours because there are so many details, and that everybody knows his role and character and how do you say, participation in the scene. And then of course when we shot the scene, it was like one try and then the next try, and then we know more about the scene. So the method sounds a little bit stupid, but the way we are doing it, it's similar, but I think, yeah, I have more experience, and also Bernhard Keller, the DOP. So I think from film to film, even if there are 10 years between, we have some new experiences for the next project.
I was going to ask, I mean, are you shooting a lot of takes? It sounds very time and labor intensive, but it seems like you're getting a lot of coverage just from how the film is edited, right? So you must presumably be shooting quite a few
Yeah, it's
takes.
sometimes like this, sometimes like that. Sometimes it really depends of the time we have. So, for example, for some of these bigger scenes around the table, for example, we had 2 nights, and so we have sometimes very long shots, and the DOP Bernhard Keller has some kind of choreography, some places he can change, but we really do long takes, always the same thing, but of course it's changing, and we have from one take to the other, like every crew and director, we have new experiences to go into the scene. And then, of course, later we are looking what is missing and try again something. And it's a lot of try and error to do
Of course, of
these
course.
scenes. Yeah.
Well, I guess my last question before I let you go would be, I mean, do you see yourself staying in this part of the world, staying with these kind of stories? I mean, I hope it won't be another 9 years. I know that sounded accusatory. I mean, it's not your fault or your choice, of course. I presume your way of writing scripts makes potential funders very nervous, for instance. But yeah, do you see yourself staying in this part of the world with these kind of characters, these kind of stories? I mean, have you thought about where you might want to go next?
I think I would love to stay a little bit more there, because in these 5 years of research on the border, I don't know, I have a material now which feels like a treasure.
Mm.
And I had the feeling I can't just leave this and say goodbye. This is really waiting that we are doing something with this. My idea or desire at the moment would be a serial with non-professional
Right.
actors, but I don't know. I think that there's still something to do there, and I really hope, because financing was really very difficult for this project. It was so beautiful to make this film, but at the same time so difficult. And there were so many moments when we thought, can we really do the film? And this was sometimes really also bitter. And I really do hope that maybe for the next one, it's a little bit easier to finance it. This would be wonderful. My script doesn't look like a script, and I think this is still often a problem, well, for financing.
Well, we're all very glad that you did persevere and finish the film, and we hope that the next one will come a little more easily to you. And I think we'll leave it on that optimistic
Yeah,
note.
of course, always optimistic. Yeah, and I didn't want to complain, but if you a little bit complain,
that's quite all right. Valeska Grisebach, thank you so much for the film, and thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us.
Yeah, I thank you very much. Really, it was very nice talking to you.